now to the new details on the Air India crash and new questions about possible sabotage. The confusion in the cockpit as fuel to the plane's engines would shut off just seconds after takeoff. The pilots questioning each other. The new details tonight from a preliminary report. Here's ABC's Lama Hassan.
Tonight, the mystery into what caused Air India Flight 171, flying from Ahmedabad bound for London's Gatwick Airport, to crash last month deepens. The newly released preliminary report shows investigators focusing now on those fuel cutoff switches and whether this was a deliberate act.
Fuel switches deliberately were turned off, shutting off fuel to the engines and shutting those two engines down. What we don't know is who did it, and we don't know why they did it.
New questions about why both control switches that provide the engines with fuel were turned off about 3 seconds into the flight and turned back on about 10 seconds later. New images from the aftermath do show those fuel control switches firmly in the run position, but it was too late. The engines failed to regain thrust.
We know that these switches didn't get bumped. We know that it was a deliberate action where you have to actually lift the switch and move it to the other position. It's not something that can be bumped from one position to another.
According to the report, both pilots are heard discussing the switches in the cockpit voice recording.
We do know that one of the pilots asked the other pilot, why did you move those switches? Why did you cut off the fuel to both of the engines? The other pilot said, I didn't do it. One of them is not telling the truth.
There have been at least 2 deliberate plane crashes in recent years. The German Wings co-pilot intentionally bringing down the plane in the Alps, killing 150 people on board. And Egypt Air Flight 990, the co-pilot crashing the aircraft 60 miles south of Nantucket. And at this stage, investigators are not looking at technical or maintenance failures. Steve said that the report is very clear that there is nothing wrong with the 787 or the engines that power that airplane. Martha.
Lana, thank you. Deep divisions among President Trump's administration and his supporters over the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, with a reported spat between top Justice Department and FBI officials over the decision to close the high-profile probe. Here's ABC's senior White House correspondent, Selena Wang.
Tonight, the extraordinary political crisis inside the White House. Top leadership at the Justice Department and FBI in turmoil, under fire over their handling of the investigation into sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Trump's most loyal supporters erupting after the DOJ and FBI released a joint memo saying there is no client list. Sources tell ABC News Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino is considering resigning after clashing with Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Pam, if you can't do your job, we'll find someone who will.
I have nothing against Pam Bondi, but if you want to look for the villain in this story, we have found her.
For years, Bongino and FBI Director Kash Patel fueled conspiracies about Epstein's death. The case became a symbol for the MAGA movement, a promise to take down the so-called corrupt elite.
Folks, you're going to see a lot of names on that. The Epstein client list, there's a reason they're hiding it.
Bondi seemed to vow to reveal it.
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
She now says she was referring to the whole report and not a client list. But officials like Patel, who once backed those claims, now closing the door. Tonight, Patel posting the conspiracy stories just aren't true, never have been. The DOJ reiterating previous findings that Epstein died by suicide with no credible evidence of blackmail and saying there would be no further investigation. And tonight, President Trump coming to Bondi's defense for the first time in public since the controversy began, posting that she's doing a fantastic job, adding that we're on one team, MAGA, and I don't like what's happening, and let's not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein. As the outrage grows, sources tell ABC News Bondi has fired at least 20 prosecutors and support staffers who worked on former special counsel Jack Smith's investigations into President Trump.
And Martha, today President Trump announced more tariffs on some of our biggest trading partners, 30% on the European Union and Mexico, that go into effect on August 1st. Both are slamming the move, saying they were in active negotiations with the U.S. The EU is warning that this will harm consumers and businesses on both sides of the Atlantic. Martha?
Thank you, Selena. And tune in to This Week tomorrow morning. Jonathan Karl speaks with National Economic Council Chair Kevin Hassett about President Trump's shifting strategy on tariffs.